They stripped her of rank, erased her name, and left her drifting in open water. No reason, no goodbye. She thought it was exile, until a submarine that doesn't exist surfaced just for her. No flag, no insignia, just a man who said, "Welcome back." If she was nobody, then why did the ocean remember her? Lieutenant Commander Amara Cole walked between them with her spine straight and her mouth shut. She didn't ask why, not because she wasn't dying to, but because she already knew the Navy rarely gave black women the dignity of reasons. Not at her rank. Not at her station. Outside, the flight deck of the USS Anchorage shimmered gold beneath early light. FA-18s thundered skyward, their engines vibrating through the metal under her boots like a memory of control. 8 years of service. And now, the deck felt like borrowed ground. Chief Petty Officer Morgan approached with 2 steaming mugs. "Clear morning," he offered, not quite meeting her eyes. Amara took the coffee. It burned her fingers. "Only when you're allowed to stand in it." Morgan blinked but said nothing. She sipped once, then handed it back unfinished. That's when the voice cracked over the intercom. "Lieutenant Commander Cole, report to the captain's quarters. Immediately." The tone wasn't routine. It was stripped of ceremony. The kind of tone that told you nothing good was waiting behind the next door. She passed rows of sailors who usually greeted her with nods or casual salutes. Now they studied floor tiles like the answers to their own survival were written in the grout. When she turned a corner, one junior officer literally backed away to avoid eye contact. The Marine at the captain's quarters opened the door without knocking. Unheard of. Inside stood Captain Denning. White, aging, unreadable, flanked by 2 civilians in gray suits. No insignia, no smiles. Their postures screamed naval intelligence. She saluted. "Lieutenant Commander Cole, reporting as ordered." "At ease," Denning said without looking up. "Effective immediately. You're relieved of duty." The words didn't hit. Not at first. "Sir, may I ask on what grounds?" "That information is classified," one of the civilians replied flatly. He slid a folder across the desk. She didn't reach for it. "My team has been reassigned," Denning cut in. "Sir, You deserve nothing, Commander," the second civilian said. Cold. Final. She turned to Denning, ignoring the men in gray. "Sir, have I done something wrong?" For a second, barely that, his mask cracked. A flicker of regret passed through his eyes. But then it vanished. "Follow your orders, Commander. That's all I can say." She picked up the folder but didn't open it. She understood. This wasn't a punishment. It was a disappearance. The 2 Marines flanked her again as she left the office. But this time the silence was heavier. The halls of the carrier felt narrower. Every face she passed either pretended not to know her or looked away with guilt. Outside the Combat Information Center, she saw Petty Officer Lane, one of her best sonar techs, standing behind the glass. His eyes were red. He raised a hand against the window, didn't speak. Then someone pulled him back. Commander Walsh, her XO, firefighting partner, former confidant, emerged from a side room. Their eyes met. He gave a barely perceptible nod. That was it. No explanation. No farewell. Just a nod and a door that never opened again. Her quarters had been emptied. Her books, medals, photographs, all packed into a single green duffel bag. Her Navy uniforms still hung, pressed and untouched. She didn't need them now. Inside the folder, 1 page, transferred to Naval Station Horizon. Pending reassignment. No rank mentioned, no mission, no reason. She changed into civilian clothes, folded her ribbons carefully into a side pocket, zipped the bag shut. "I'm ready," she told the Marine when he asked. At the lowest deck, a single motorboat waited, bobbing gently. No send-off, no salute, no ceremony. Captain Denning appeared one last time, broke protocol by joining her at the edge. He handed her a sealed envelope. "Open this after 10 miles, not before." She wanted to ask, wanted to scream, but she didn't. "Good luck, Commander," he said. His voice barely reached her. She boarded the boat. The engine sputtered to life. No one waved. No one looked down from the carrier deck. As the massive hull of the anchorage receded into the horizon, the wind tangled her curls across her face. She didn't bother to fix them. All she had now was a duffel, a sealed envelope, and a silence so loud it drowned everything. She stared at the waves and whispered the only question that mattered. If I wasn't guilty, why did they erase me like I was? The sea gave no answers. Just endless blue, pulsing in slow rhythms against the small boat's hull. The pilot, a white sailor in silence, kept his eyes on the horizon, hands steady on the throttle, never looking her way. 30 minutes passed, then 45. The USS Anchorage was long gone, just a memory swallowed by ocean and orders. 2 hours in, the engine cut out. "This is as far as I go," the man said without turning. Amara looked around. "There's nothing here." He pointed to the dashboard's glowing coordinates. "Wasn't told to bring you to anything. Just here." He stood, handed her the controls. "Radio's functional. Fuel's full. Food and water under the bench." She stared at him, baffled. "And then what?" "Then I go home." "You... wait." He stepped into a small raft tied to the side and pulled away, back toward the invisible ship that had already forgotten her. Now she was truly alone. The envelope in her jacket suddenly felt heavier than her duffel. She pulled it out. 10 miles had passed long ago. Her fingers hesitated over the seal, then tore it. Inside, a single sheet. Coordinates. A time. She checked her watch. 12:15. The note read, 1600 hours. She looked back at the ocean. No hint of what or who was coming. No clue if this was extraction or exile. For a moment she closed her eyes and let the sun hit her face. The air was thick with salt. Her curls clung to her temples. Somewhere inside her, something whispered. They don't want you to understand. They just want you gone. But they hadn't dumped her at a base. They hadn't locked her up. They'd brought her out here, to nowhere, with precision. That meant something. She scanned the boat's systems, checked the heading, recalculated distance, then throttled forward slowly toward the coordinates. The engine hummed. Waves split clean. Sunlight danced on crests like sparks off metal. She found a canopy under one of the seats and rigged it overhead. The hours crept by. She drank water sparingly, eyes on the GPS, ears attuned to everything. The slap of water, the ticking motor, the wind. She tried the radio once. "This is Cole. Do you copy?" Static answered. Then silence. As the minutes ticked toward 1600, she stood up in the boat, scanning with binoculars. Nothing. Just ocean in all directions. No ships, no movement. No sound but water breathing against the hull. Her watch beeped. 1600. Nothing happened. 1 minute passed. 2. Then something changed. Not sight, not sound, just a feeling. The water beneath her shifted. Not wind, not wave. Something massive was moving underneath. 200 yards ahead, the surface began to tremble. Bubbles. A dome of water rising unnaturally smooth. She froze, hands gripping the edge of the boat. Then it emerged. Black steel broke the surface like a ghost surfacing from below time. A submarine. No markings, no flag, rising in deliberate silence. Sleeker than anything she'd seen in her career. Longer. Hungrier. The conning tower surfaced last, water pouring off its angled frame. A hatch opened. A tall man in dark uniform stepped into view, raising binoculars toward her. After a moment, he lifted one hand and waved. Not a signal, not an order, a beckon. She didn't move. Years of training screamed inside her. This is not protocol. This is not standard. This is not Navy. But neither was her removal. She started the boat's engine, adjusted course, and moved toward the submarine. The wake lapped against her hull like breath. Slow. Warning. Invitation. As she drew closer, she could see the man more clearly. Late 50s, weathered face, silver in his dark hair. No name tag, just captain's bars. When she was within earshot, he called out calmly, "Commander Cole. Welcome aboard the USS Erebus." She stared at him, stunned. There is no such vessel in the fleet. His smile was faint, controlled. Exactly. That's the point. Then he stepped aside and motioned toward the open hatch. The decision wasn't written anywhere. Not in orders. Not in the envelope. But she knew. Whatever this was, it had already started. And if she didn't walk forward, she might never know what they were really trying to hide. The metal beneath her boots didn't feel like any Navy vessel she'd ever boarded. It hummed, not with noise, but with intention. The hull was colder, smoother, too quiet. 2 men met her on deck, both white. No names on their uniforms, no patches. Just quiet eyes and steady hands as they secured her boat and lifted her duffel aboard. "Your things will be taken below," one said. Voice clipped, not unkind, just trained. Amara followed the captain down the hatch. The air inside the Erebus was different, thicker. No paint peeling, no hum of 2 old systems. Just a clinical sterility wrapped in darkness and hush. She climbed down the ladder and entered a corridor lit by soft LED strips. No clang of boots, no chatter, just quiet, as if even the walls were bound by oath. "I'm Captain Ashford," the man finally said, as they walked side by side. "You weren't supposed to be dismissed, but we couldn't pull you from Anchorage without raising questions." Amara didn't respond. Not yet. They passed crew members who paused, saluted the captain and cast her cautious glances. Some looked at her like they knew her, others like they were trying to decide if she belonged. "They know who you are," Ashford said, sensing her tension. "Your algorithm flagged something 3 months ago. Something our standard systems couldn't catch. You weren't wrong, just too early." She stopped walking. "You threw away my career to recruit me quietly?" He turned, didn't flinch. "We didn't throw it away. We protected it. You were making people nervous. You were right, Commander, and some people don't like being wrong, especially not by someone they can't control." There it was. Not said directly, but layered thick in implication. Someone they can't control. They resumed walking. Through a bulkhead into a chamber that felt more like a data center than a warship. Screens lined the walls. Maps, sonar arrays, unrecognizable schematics scrolling across transparent displays. "This is the command center," Ashford said. "Welcome to the Erebus." The name still echoed in her head. Erebus, the ancient Greek god of darkness. Fitting. A voice called out behind her. "Amara?" She turned. A woman approached, white, early 30s, short blonde hair, tactical gear. The name tag said N. Voss, but Amara already knew her. Natalie Voss. Her former bunkmate from Annapolis. The one who took early leave for family reasons. Or so she was told. "What? You're here?" Voss smiled slightly. "Been here for a year. You'll understand soon. Most people here got erased before they got promoted." Amara didn't return the smile. She was still calculating. Captain Ashford tapped a panel. A sonar feed appeared on screen. A wide sweep of the Pacific trench line. "This is what your work led us to. We've been tracking it ever since you flagged that anomaly. Something is out there, Commander. Quiet, coordinated, and not ours." Amara recognized the signature. It had haunted her months ago. She'd filed the report, gotten a polite thank you. Then silence. Now it was back, and glowing. "Unmanned underwater vehicles?" she asked, staring at the movement patterns. "Smarter than anything we've seen. They don't just drift, they coordinate, communicate, evade." Amara stepped forward, scanning the feed. "This cluster, it's shadowing the cable routes." "Exactly." Ashford nodded toward Voss. "She'll show you your station. You'll have full access to every feed. We brought you here to do what nobody else could. Hear what others missed." Amara followed Voss down a second corridor. The walls here were different. Matte black, lined with unfamiliar sensors and smooth grooves she couldn't identify. No brass, no clutter, just pure function. They entered a sound lab, darker than the rest, with soft lighting and a glowing central console. "Your new ears," Voss said. Amara approached the station, running her fingers over the controls. It felt like music. Clean design, minimal drag, hydrophone arrays linked to AI processors, but still relying on human intuition to thread the noise. She sat, logged in. The interface greeted her like it had been waiting. "You built the net," Voss said quietly. "Now you're going to help us catch the ghost." And just like that, it began. Not a mission, but a reckoning. The data didn't sleep. Neither did she. Hours blurred as Amara sat at the console, headphones clamped over her ears, fingers dancing across touchscreens while spectrograms bloomed and vanished like ghost maps. Noise, silence, then a whisper, barely a tick in the deep. She froze, rewound, filtered. There. A pulse. Not biological, not geological. Patterned. She tapped the waveform, isolating it. "Voss!" she called, voice low but urgent. Voss entered fast. "What have you got?" "Communication," Amara said. "But not broadband. It's pulse-based, spread spectrum, tightly encoded. These drones aren't just mapping, they're talking to each other." Voss leaned in, listening. "You're sure?" Amara didn't answer. She was already stacking frames, syncing timestamps, overlaying pathing data. What emerged on the screen was a web, a lattice of drone activity stretching across the Pacific Trench. Coordinated, strategic, too precise to be accident, too quiet to be American. Captain Ashford arrived minutes later. She briefed him while the data replayed. "You've been on board less than 36 hours, he said, not hiding his astonishment, "and already cracked their network rhythm." Amara shrugged. "I wasn't here to adjust. I was here to work." He studied her for a beat longer than necessary. "I know what it cost you. Coming here. Being removed the way you were. That silence wasn't ours. That was the Navy protecting itself." "From me?" she asked. "From embarrassment? A black woman in charge of their top acoustic detection protocol?" He caught himself, but too late. "They couldn't explain why they ignored you, so they erased the question." There it was, said plain. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "I'm not here for apologies," she said finally. "I'm here to finish what I started." Ashford nodded, then turned to Voss. "Begin silent tracking. If we push too close, we spook them." For the next 72 hours, Erebus shadowed the swarm in absolute silence. No sonar pings, no active scans, just passive listening, reading vibrations, and whisper trails. The drones maintained perfect intervals, not random. They were following the undersea cable routes that carried the West Coast's digital heartbeat. Every signal, every defense alert, every satellite sync. "These aren't scouts," Voss muttered one night staring at the heat map. "They're cartographers, mapping our nervous system." Amara zoomed in. "And planting something. Look, here, and here, regular intervals." She tapped the screen, anchored dots glowing faintly. Ashford was summoned. "They're leaving behind devices," Amara said. "Sensors. Maybe triggers. Maybe both." "If it ever goes hot," Voss added, "they don't just know where to hit. They've already laced the spine." Ashford exhaled slowly. "We have enough now. I'll request Phase 3 authorization." Amara raised an eyebrow. "What's Phase 3? "Recovery." He didn't explain. He didn't have to. That night, Amara sat alone in the observation chamber, a narrow alcove with thick glass facing the abyss. She watched the endless dark pulse around them, slow and patient. No flags flew down here. No names were spoken in briefings. And no one would ever tell her story the way it happened. She touched the dolphin pin Voss had left on her bunk, the submariner insignia, modified for Erebus. Not earned through ceremony, but through silence. A ship full of ghosts. A woman they tried to forget. A mission no one would ever admit existed. And yet, somehow, this was the first time she felt seen. The briefing was silent, precise, and carried out behind locked doors. Captain Ashford laid out the objective on a tactical display. No flares, no fanfare. Just coordinates, sonar paths, and a single blinking red marker. Target Alpha 9. One of the drones Amara had isolated. It drifted apart from the swarm, likely a relay node. Vulnerable, recoverable. Primary objective, Ashford said, is clean capture. Secondary, zero detection. No alerts, no response. What if it sends a ping before containment? Voss asked. Then we abort, Ashford replied. This op doesn't exist. If we get caught in the middle, Erebus doesn't exist either. Everyone understood. Amara said nothing. But her hands had already begun programming calibration adjustments, minuscule signal variances that would let them glide within a drone's blind arc. Not military textbook, just instinct, just survival. 4 hours later, the Erebus sank into whisper mode. No light, no thrusters, no air cycling loud enough to hear. It became a shadow inside the ocean's bloodstream, trailing the drone with nothing but pressure shifts and nerve. In the acoustic lab, Amara watched its path draw nearer. The frequency pulses between drones, once random, now formed a rhythm in her mind, like sonar Morse, like breath. She closed her eyes. 1 beat, pause, 2 beats, shift. On the third, it listens. She calculated the interception timing between those pulses. It wasn't just about silence. It was about knowing when to be invisible. Ashford stood behind her. Can we get close enough? She opened her eyes. Yes, but we don't get a second shot. Understood. They moved into final position. A specialized retrieval unit, compact, silent, hydrodynamically neutral, was deployed from the lower hull. It drifted with current, almost lazy in its motion. But every movement was choreographed. Contact in 30 seconds, Voss said over comms, voice flat with tension. Amara tracked the drone's heartbeat. It pulsed again. Then again. She raised one hand. Wait! The entire bridge held its breath. She watched the waveform. Now! The retrieval arm engaged. On screen, the drone was enveloped in a containment shield, a cocoon of stealth alloy designed to block all transmission. It twitched once, then stillness. No pings detected, Voss whispered. Target secured, Ashford confirmed. A beat of collective silence passed through the command center. Then exhale. No claps, no cheers, just quiet pride. Hours later, in the technical bay, Amara stood over the recovered unit. It was sleek, alien. No propellers, no seams. A single curved shell of obsidian composite with what looked like biomimetic skin. Dr. Reyes, the onboard materials analyst, approached. This isn't just advanced. It's decades ahead. Could be Chinese, could be stolen tech. But it's beyond what any of our analysts expected. He turned to Amara. You found the first thread. Now we start unraveling it. She didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the drone, on the invisible lines that had led here. Months of suspicion, being told to back down, being dismissed for being too insistent, too certain, too much. Now she had proof. She returned to her console and began parsing the drone's last recorded transmissions, localized signal echoes caught before containment. At first, it was static. Then, modulation. A pattern again. Different from before. This wasn't drone to drone. It was drone to surface. She enhanced the waveform, layered translation matrices, then paused. The drone wasn't just communicating. It was reporting. And not to a satellite, to a ship. She felt her pulse jump. Captain, she called. It's not autonomous. There's a mother vessel nearby. It's been receiving live data this entire time. Ashford appeared beside her. Location? She isolated the signal origin, traced its bounce. Here, she said, pointing. Disguised as a research vessel, operating in international waters, but it's been hiding in our blind zone. Ashford stared at the blinking dot. They're not just watching. They're preparing. A long silence followed. Then, prepare a full report. Secure channel. We send this straight to Stratcom. The debate's over. This isn't hypothetical anymore. That night, Amara returned to the observation alcove. The drone was secured, The signal decoded. The enemy exposed. But the most important thing was unspoken. The system that removed her would never admit she'd been right. That her removal was not about protocol, but about discomfort, about being inconvenient, about being her. No ceremony would be held. But in the quiet of the deep, something shifted. A reckoning, not with revenge, but with clarity. The Erebus drifted like a myth beneath the surface, unseen but not unfelt. For 5 weeks after the capture, Amara led the analysis unit with quiet fire. The drone revealed secrets slowly, layer by layer. Every system a code, every anomaly a confession. They discovered it wasn't just mapping. It was learning. Its behavior changed depending on current, depth, nearby sonar. It adapted, shifted frequencies, avoided detection zones. It wasn't a machine. It was a student, and it had been studying them for months. Amara compiled a report so detailed even the skeptics in Naval Command had to acknowledge the truth. The Erebus's findings were sent through secure backchannels, not to headlines, not to medals, but to a select circle of power that made decisions behind closed doors. They never mentioned her name. But they did quietly redirect funding, revise threat protocols, and initiate a full-scale investigation into maritime surveillance routes. Ashford brought her the memo himself. "Command is pleased," he said. "They want the Erebus to continue operating under deep protocol." She nodded. "That's not about me." "No," he said. "But this is." He handed her a sealed folder. Inside, promotion authorization, Executive Officer of the Erebus. Her hands didn't shake, but her throat tightened. "What about Voss?" she asked. "She's transferring. Chosen to lead the next class vessel. This post is yours, if you want it." She looked at him. "Do I finally get to exist now?" Ashford didn't flinch. "Only to those who know where to look." She thought about that for a long time. About her parents in Virginia who still believed she was working sonar analysis in Pearl Harbor. About the crew of the Anchorage, who probably whispered that she was forced out, demoted, or worse. About the captain who handed her a sealed envelope like it was a grave. And about her own hands, the same hands that had calibrated algorithms powerful enough to change doctrine, yet never earned her a salute on the way out. That night, she stood again in the observation alcove. Outside, the ocean shimmered in soft electric blues, faint reflections from the Erebus's exterior lights dancing across plankton fields. Below, silence thickened. She held something in her hand, the modified dolphin insignia, submariner's pin, symbol of trust, of earned place. Voss had given it to her without a word. Now, she turned it over slowly, ran her thumb along its new etching, a hidden waveform engraved behind the fins. Her signature, her proof, her legacy. Ashford joined her a few minutes later. "We dive at midnight," he said. "Mission resumes, new trench, new threats." She didn't look at him. "Same ghosts," he nodded. "Decision?" She turned. "Yes." "Then Exo Cole," he said with the slightest smile. "Welcome aboard." He left her there, alone again, but not invisible. The moment hung like held breath. She clipped the pin to her collar. Not for them. Not for the Navy that left her drifting in open water without a salute. But for the quiet truth that echoed beneath every calculation, every sonar thread, every moment they doubted her. She was never wrong. They were never ready. Now they were. Because of her. She leaned against the glass one last time before descent. The dark below opened wide, not as a void, but as a chamber of purpose. The Erebus would slip through it again, unseen. But this time, so would her name. And in that stillness, in the language of pressure and silence, one whispered thought lingered like a sonar pulse echoing outward. They never gave her a flag, so she became one.